Hello, this is Jeff Byers, and welcome back. Well, you've loaded up your Epic Games launcher. You've got it on. You've already registered. You've got all that stuff done. You saved your password in a safe spot so you can get to it anytime you want to. All this is done. Now, what do? Well, you want to create a new project, okay? So the first thing you're going to want to do is you'll probably just going to have to minimize, don't close out, minimize, and going to go into your File Explorer on Windows. Go to the hard drive that you'd like to use to save your work to, okay? And that can be your external hard drive, your backup hard drive on your computer, or the C drive. Now, your hard drive on your computer, if it's an SSD drive, will run pretty good. If you have an external hard drive and it's an SSD, it'll run pretty well. Your hard drive on your computer is going to run a little faster than the external hard drive SSD. But if you don't have an SSD and you got a regular hard drive, and running off that regular hard drive will slow things down. So when you're saving, if you're running off of your hard drive, running Unreal off of your hard drive, you have to be very patient when you save because it will take a while for it to save. So just remember that. You start pushing buttons, you're probably going to crash the whole system and have all kinds of problems. If you can run it off your C drive, your main drive, that's great, but you got to check and see how much memory you have left, hard drive space. So if I go into Properties, and you can see I don't have much left. I would, 51 gigs sounds like a lot, but it's not. So a lot of times when you buy a computer, you probably want to get an external SSD drive because your C drive won't be able to handle the amount of gigabytes it needs to run Unreal. Unreal is very resource intensive, and it'll use 20 gigs just to actually load up a scene, 20 gigs. Not to mention how many gigs the actual program is. So just remember that. So those two things, I would make sure that once you get Unreal installed and the version that you want installed, then you're going to need to see how much memory or gigabytes you have left on your hard drive. And that's just not enough because there are assets out there, packages that are 20 gigs. I've seen them as much as 20 gigs. Most of them are around 2 to 10 gigs, some 13 and then higher. Just understand you need to manage your memory, how much space you have left on your computer. That's a big deal. That's the problems I see with students have for the first time. So you need to make sure you delegate a hard drive to Unreal, not the entire drive, but maybe 100 gigabytes. So let's look what I have on data. So if I've got another hard drive, SSD drive on my computer, I also have an external that I go to as well. That's 4 terabytes, and I think my data is only 2 terabytes. So I'm going to go in here and see what I got. So what you can do is you can right-click over the hard drive and just go to Properties and click on Properties. And you can see I've got 426 gigabytes, and that's plenty for Unreal. So I'm good there. So I know I want to place a folder on there to start my projects. Okay. So I'm going to click on that, and I can click anywhere on this area here as long as I'm not highlighting anything like another folder. And I can right click over and go to New Folder. Now the new folder is important. This is where you're going to place all your work. Okay. So, and I know students have asked me, so do we need to create different folders for different modules or for different projects? And I said that's up to you. If you want to run off the one single one, you sure can. That gets a little hard to manage. So sometimes I recommend that you do per project. Now, doesn't mean per module. So I may have 3 modules that make up a project. So you're good for 3 weeks, and then you move on to the next project. Could be 4 weeks. So the first one we do is 3 weeks, and then from then on we do 4 weeks. So so let's say it's module 4, 5, 6, and 7, and those 4 you'll be working on one project. So whatever you do, whether you're taking my class or you're not, you need to make a folder for Unreal to put all your stuff in, and you can do it per project or you can do it for the whole thing. So I'm just gonna type in Unreal, that way I can get to it easily on here, and I'm just gonna put in Jeff, and of course your first name, or your first and last name, probably even better. And then let's say what project you're going to be working on. It could be project 1, module 1. So I'm just going to do MOD 04 through 08. So modules 4 through 8. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter on that. So it's just an empty folder. And this is where we want to assign the Unreal Engine to go. And that is important, okay? So that allows us to know exactly where that Unreal project is, and we can get to it every single time. Now, if you can be more specific, on this, you can put something in there. What are you working on? You can make it longer. That's okay. But the Unreal project folder needs to be a very short name. It doesn't like real long names, but here you can add a longer, more text in there if you want to. All right, with that done, next thing you're going to do is you're going to go into your Unreal launch, and you can see that we've got our library that's highlighted. They have samples, all kinds of stuff in here. So just go to your library. And this is where you're going to have your engine versions. And the engine versions, you can see here, I've got quite a few. This has taken up a lot of space on my hard drive. So eventually I'm going to probably get rid of 5, all these except for the latest versions. I always continue to work in this version just because of all my materials that I have. Of course, you can use any version you want, but then if you follow my tutorials and you get stuck on something, I might have a hard time, answering your questions, because a lot of times I'll be working in 4.27.2. And another thing, the reason why I go to 5.6.1, which is amazing. I use it in some of my stuff, but when you start in a certain version of Unreal, it's really not a good idea to update, because your projects won't work in other versions. You'll have to migrate all your stuff. It's a big hassle. So you kind of stick with what you have worked in, okay, when you're doing projects, so you can get them done quickly. Otherwise, you're sitting there trying to learn the new version, and Unreal makes huge advancements and UI changes. So it's really hard to keep up with that stuff. So when you start a project, you're probably going to have to stick with that version. Okay, so we started with 4.27.2. So you can see here I've got a little explanation point in here saying that you better check this out. So install plugins. Let's see. So it's saying right here, Unreal 4.27.2 Unreal Engine plugins updates available. So sure, of course I want to update. Now, sometimes this could be a bad thing. It's really up to you what you want to do. But if you run into issues with Substance Painter, or with, Substance 3D for Unreal, which allows you to use Substance Painter materials, which is very powerful, you do want to try to keep up with that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So when I launch this, you're going to notice, it's going to ask you, do you want to start a new project? And normally, since I am starting a new project, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to pause this and get back to you. Oh, looks like it's, oh, there we go. So it didn't take too long. So of course it remembers what I was working on before, and I can click on more to find other things. So if you don't see the projects you have been working on here, you want to click on more. So with me, I want to start a new project with you. So I'm just going to click on games. I'm going to click on next. And then you have to kind of decide what you want to be working on. Do you want to be working on first person? Do you want to be working on a third person? I'm not really doing anything else in this class, but these are some other really cool stuff. If you really get into Unreal and you want to experiment outside of class, feel free. But it's usually going to be first person or third person. All right. What's the difference? You're basically the person you're playing. You're seeing through your eyes, and you can see things in front of you. Now, third person is when the camera's behind the character, following the character around. So those are the big differences between the two, and I like to experiment with both of those. We're going to be doing an exterior. So if you wanted to do third person, you sure could for this project, but I'm just going to continue using first person. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to next, and then blueprint, maximum quality, ray tracing disabled. You have to have an absolutely monster computer with the latest RTX video card to turn that on. So don't turn that on. If you do turn that on, you're gonna have all kinds of laggy problems. So just keep that turned off. It's still gonna look good, and everything else is just defaulted. Okay, we want it with the starter kit, starter content. You may want to use some materials. That's what that means. That it gives you some free materials and stuff with it. Yeah, it makes it a lot heavier. Meaning it takes a lot more resource on your hard drive, but if you don't have any assets, you probably want to keep that in there. Okay. Some people people that have done this a long time don't like the starter content. They like to bring everything in themselves. They have all these assets and all this other stuff. They don't need it. But as a beginner, you're probably going to need the starter content. All right. So what's the location? Well, that's important. So we're going to click on the three little bars here. Okay. Now, I know I've created a new folder on data. So I know I called it Unreal. So I'm just going to look for that, and it's Unreal JBuyers Module 0408. All right, so I'm going to open that up. Okay, that means I've selected that folder. I'm going to click Select Folder. So now we're telling it where to actually create our projects. Okay, so project name is important, and you want to keep it short. So call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Mod. This is going to be my project. Whoops, there we go. Mod, and it's just going to do 04. I'm just going to put 4, keep it real simple, 4_8. So module 4 through 8. So that's what I'm going to be working with. I'm going to create project. Okay. So a lot of your issues are stemming from that you're not creating a folder for all this stuff. Now this came up really quick. You can see that it's running off the internal hard drive of my computer. If I was running off my SSD, external SSD card, it would take twice as long, 3 times as long, maybe 4 times as long. And if you're using a regular hard drive, it may even take longer. Okay. Now the thing is, we don't really have anything in here, right? This is just our project. Well, let's see how big that project is on our folder. Now that we have a new project set up with the starter package with Unreal all ready to go for us. So I'm going to go to my data drive D. Yours is going to be different. And I'm going to go to my Unreal Jeff Byers Module 4 and 8. You can see in here, if I double click on it, I can see my Module 4 and 8 folder. Really simple. Like, okay, so what's in here? Well, we have our configured files, we have our content, we have our derived data cache, we've got our intermediate and saved, and we've got our first scene. Okay, so if I were to go in here and double click on this, it would show my first scene. Okay, so let's just kind of look at what we have here. Let's go up one and let's right click over and go to properties. Okay, so this particular package is now almost a gigabyte. So it's 729 megabytes. This is actually smaller than I thought. So 729 megabytes. All right. Now that's without anything. That's with nothing in your scene except a bunch of just regular stuff. So let me go back into my scene. You can see that this is what I have in my scene. It always comes in with this scene, which is good. You don't want to start from nothing until you know what you're doing.